Hey, this is Charles with Rocky Mountain ATV MC. Today I'm going to show you how to install a Tusk digital radiator fan kit on your late model Honda dirt bike. It's no secret that these off-road dirt bike engines can get hot, especially if you're on slower, tight technical trails or any kind of sandy or muddy conditions. Even the pro motocross guys will run a radiator fan kit if they're at a muddy race. So that's why we're going to install the Tusk digital radiator fan kit on this bike, and we just want to keep this thing at a safe operating temperature. Now, as far as parts and consumables go, we have the Tusk digital radiator fan kit. So this obviously comes with your fan, a mount, your wiring harness along with the thermostat, and then you also have the mounting hardware to get that installed. It does come with some zip ties, but we sourced some additional zip ties, and then we're also going to be draining the coolant out since we're removing one of the radiators. So you want coolant. We have a crush washer for the drain bolt, and then we're using dielectric grease, Loctite, some contact cleaner, rubber gloves, and some rags. Before you start, it's a good idea to read through your provided set of instructions and get familiar with this process, and you'll also want to refer to your model-specific service manual throughout the install. To do this job, we're going to use some common hand tools, and specific tools to this job are going to be your T15 Torx wrench. We're also using a drill and the drill bit that comes in the kit, and we're also going to use a drain pan, and we will be using a vacuum cap when we remove the gas tank. We're working on a 2019 CRF250RX, but the procedures will be similar for a lot of different Honda models. So we're going to go ahead and show you how to get this installed. Okay, the first steps we need to take is remove the seat. We're going to remove this right number plate and also this right radiator shroud. If you are removing the gas tank, you can go ahead and remove the left radiator shroud as well. Now, to remove the gas tank, we have a cable tie that goes around the radiator overflow vent tube. We'll disconnect that. We have a bolt in the top. We'll take that out, and then the rubber strap in the back. All right, the next step to remove the gas tank is to either plug this vent line, or what I'm going to use is this vacuum cap that we showed in the tool shot. And once that's on there, make sure the cap's on tight. We can lift the gas tank up and flip it over. The other side actually has a cable that's designed so you hang the tank from the left side of the bike, and then you can get to all your connectors. We're just going to let it hang and finish the install. Okay, at this point, we're ready to drain the coolant out. And if you do have a skid plate in place, you might have to remove it before you do this step. But we'll go ahead and remove this cooling drain bolt. And make sure you have your pan underneath. So with the bolt out of place, we'll open the radiator cap. With the coolant drained out, you can now put your drain bolt back into place, and it's a good idea to use a new crush washer. So we're going to go ahead and put one on, and we'll tighten that bolt down. The next thing we'll do is remove the louver on the radiator. Now we can remove this cable tie, and this is going around the overflow tube coming from the radiator. That'll just let us get it out of the way. And to remove that, we'll back off this clamp and then remove this tube. Okay, next I'll place a rag underneath the radiator. That's going to help catch any spilled coolant that comes out of this. And we'll remove these clamps that hold the radiator hoses in place. And I'm going to take my hook tool and just run it around the radiator hose just to free it up. Then we can pull that from the radiator. We'll do the same thing on the bottom hose. And then we'll take these two bolts that mount our radiator up, and then we can take the radiator and put it on the bench. When you take these out, there is a spacer behind them, so just make sure you don't lose any of this hardware coming out. And when you take the radiator off, it's a good idea to drain any leftover coolant into your drain pan. Now we're ready to attach the fan mount to the radiator. So to do that, we first need to put these two carriage bolts into place and make sure they're facing away from the radiator. And we'll set this down so this bracket aligns with the lower mount on the radiator. And then you'll take the OE bolt for this mount and you'll slide it into place. You might have to move this carriage bolt out of the way a little bit. Now we're ready to drill the holes for the screws that secure the fan mount to the radiator. So now we need to adjust the depth of the drill bit stop on the drill bit. And to do that, we'll just set it next to the fan mount, and we'll need it deep enough that it also goes through this aluminum side on the radiator, but not deep enough where it actually hits that water sleeve right there. So that's going to be plenty deep right there for us. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten that down. While you do this, make sure the drill bit stop is tight against the drill bit because you don't want that thing slipping and then damaging your radiator. We will not be responsible for any damaged radiators. Before we drill the second hole, what we'll do is put a little bit of Loctite on our screw, and we're going to tighten this down into place, and as soon as the head of it hits our mounting bracket, then we'll go another quarter of a turn. Then we'll repeat these same steps for the second and third holes. You might have noticed that we have 6 screws. It's only necessary to use 3, but if you want to run all 6, you can. Once you get those screws installed, we'll head back over to the bike. Now we're ready to put the radiator back into place. So I'm going to start out by making the hose connections onto the radiator. That's just going to help me keep everything in place. And then since I've already got this lower mounting bolt in place, I'm going to install the spacer. Now that we have the spacer in place, we'll screw this lower mount into place, and I'm just going to start it with my fingers, then I'll put the wrench on it. Now I'm going to take the top mount and put the spacer behind it, put the bolt into place and tighten it down. Next, we'll go ahead and move our hose clamps into place and get them tightened down. Then we'll take our vent tube on top, slide it into place, then we'll move the hose clamp into position. And don't forget to reinstall this cable tie. Now that we have everything reconnected, we'll go ahead and refill the cooling system with coolant. To help bleed all the air out of the coolant, I'm going to take one of the radiator hoses and I'll just pinch it a few times. That's going to help any trapped air come to the top. So we did get some air bubbles out of this, and I'm just going to top off the coolant for now, and we will recheck this level after we've run the bike up to operating temperature. We'll go ahead and reinstall this radiator cap for now. To get the fan installed, we need to put these collars onto our fan mount, and these collars have a concave side that'll go towards the radiator. Then we'll take the fan and we'll put it so this wiring is facing up. We'll put that into place, and then I'm using a little bit of blue Loctite on these studs coming through. Then we're going to put a washer and then our cap nut. Now we can tighten these nuts down to 3 foot-pounds. So in the thermostat box, you have a temperature sensor probe and some thermal grease. So you need to find a place in your radiator where you can insert this temperature probe. And right there is going to look pretty good for us. You can mount this above or below this fan. So we'll take this grease and we're going to insert half the tube into the fin we're going to insert the probe into. So we'll go ahead and slide this into place. And you want it to be a slightly snug fit. Now we'll go ahead and take our radiator fan harness and we'll route this from the battery towards the front of the bike, and we're just going to follow the stock wiring harness, and that way we can just kind of tie everything up and keep it nice and neat. Now we need to find a place to mount our digital thermostat. So on our bike, we found that it'll work pretty good right here next to the radiator. So we're going to clean that area up with some contact cleaner, and then we'll make sure the back of this digital thermostat is clean. Then we'll use the double sticky tape that came in the kit. With our thermostat stuck into place, we'll go ahead and route these wires down next to these cables. We'll get everything located where we can connect it all. So now that we have all our wires ran where they need to go, I'm going to use a little bit of dielectric grease on each connection and start making the connections. I'm going to go ahead and tie up this wiring harness all the way down the frame, and I'm going to try to reuse any existing ties that we have, and then anywhere it's still loose, then I'll add a zip tie. So I'm just going to wrap up this extra cord that we've got, and I'm going to run a zip tie through it. Now we can install the battery cables. Now we need to install our louver and gas tank. After that, we'll reinstall the radiator shrouds and side panel. So our new kit, it has a spacer right here, and we're going to put this in between the shroud and the radiator, and then we've got our new bolt and washer. This bolt is a little bit longer. Next, we'll reinstall the seat. The main screen on the thermostat will show the current temperature of the radiator. If you hit the button, it's going to show the predetermined interval when the fan's going to come on. If you want to change that, you can hold this button down and it's going to start flashing, and you can bump it up one at a time, or you can hold it down and it's going to go up quick. So we're going to have it come on at 190 degrees, and if we just let it flash, it's going to go back to the current temperature of the radiator, and it's set. You can check that by hitting the button again. It shows 190 degrees, so we know we're good. Once you've done that, you can start the bike, bring it up to operating temperature, and make sure the fan kicks on at whatever temperature you just set. And once the fan kicks off and the temperature comes down, you know everything's working correctly, and you can let the bike cool down completely to room temperature. Then you want to double check the fluid in your radiator, make sure it's all the way topped up. And that's all there is to installing the Tusk digital radiator fan kit on your bike. If you need this kit, it's available on our website, so be sure to check that out. You get free shipping on orders over $75. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more helpful content. Thanks for watching.